online, please stand. I'd like you also to stand in your bedroom or in your kitchen or wherever you are, where you're in a park or wherever. I'd like you to stand because I want you to turn to now those that are online, you can't turn to the person to your left or right, unfortunately, but we're going to involve you. What we want you to scream out in the top of your voice, "Go the Matildas." Go the Matildas. Go the Matildas. Beautiful. All right, now you can sit. And those online, please sit as well. You're probably asking, why is this strange man at the front of the room asking us to stand up and scream out, "Go the Matildas"? Well, I'm not George Clooney. Some of you might think that I'm the Greek version of George Clooney, but I'm not. For those who think I am, then I'm happy to be your number one fan club. But unfortunately, I don't look like George Clooney, but a lot of people do say so. But anyway, we'll move on from that factor. But the reason why I got you to stand up, and for those online, is because the Matildas are showing Australia that we can do anything. And it's not only just the Matildas, but the Diamonds have won. The women's cricket team has also won internationally, and not sure whether we're going to have 3 public holidays, but let's not go down that path either, because that is a very controversial one. You've got a Prime Minister, and we may all recall, some of you may not because you probably weren't born, but a former Prime Minister called Bob Hawke said on the day we won the America's Cup that we were going to get a public holiday, and that anyone who is fired by their boss should not fire anyone because they weren't in at work. But and we've got this one Prime Minister this year saying that if the Matildas win, but what happened to the Diamond team who won and the Australian cricket team that won as well? So if we're going to have a holiday, I think we should be having 3 holidays, because you can't do it for one and not do it for the others. But anyway, that's a separate issue, and we're not going to go down the poll. I have a week. We might as well have a week. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's do it. No, but we can't, because a lot of businesses are struggling at the moment, as we all know. But I also got you here because John Hart, the chair of our organisation, the Tourism Training Australia, does a great job, and he chairs it with the able help of Vanessa Barnes, and both those are great advocates for tourism and hospitality, but they're also great advocates in helping our people that work in the tourism and hospitality space train and get together. And today is one of those examples of daring to be different. All of you have come here today. We've got something like the vicinity of over 200 people joining us today, whether they're in person or whether they're online. And it's great that we've got people together. What a great city to be in. What a great place to be. I mean, I've just spent 6 weeks, 1 week in Dubrovnik and 5 weeks in Greece. Can I tell you, Australia is fantastic. I mean, I love Greece and I'm of Greek heritage. Greece is a fantastic place, and you keep going there year after year after year because there's so much to see and do. However, when it comes to structures, when it comes to process, when it comes to organisation, I mean, it's organised chaos there in Greece, but it still happens and it still works. However, when it comes here, you feel relaxed because everything's under control. Yes, we've got a bit of bureaucracy. Yes, we've got a bit of red tape. I appreciate all that. There's no red tape, no bureaucracy in Greece, I can tell you that much. They park their cars wherever they want. They don't pay their fines and they try to avoid tax. Their major sports is how to avoid tax. Anyway, we could go on and on about that, but we won't. But today is special, and I think it's great that the Tourism Training Australia has got together with the board, with John and others, to welcome you to the 2023 Tourism Training Skills Summit, which is very important. These summits are very important to the scheme of things when it comes to tourism and hospitality. It could be no more fitting that this year we celebrate the triumph of talent involving tourism, hospitality and events sector. Our keynote speakers and panellists, all leaders and experts in their fields, will provide a unique insight into industry trends, policies, regulations, and ensuring the Q&A sessions will allow for an enriching dialogue, lending to a more profound understanding of the transformations sweeping our respective sectors, which is very important. Addressing the skills gap is a central theme of the summit today, aiming to prepare our industry to thrive amidst an ongoing transformation. We're also dedicated to providing a platform for networking, fostering an environment conducive to the creation of strategic partnerships, which is so important. That's why we're here physically and we're also here online. To ignite the inspirations, we spotlight the latest innovations and advances and ready to pave the way for a future in our respective sectors. As we gather at this pivotal juncture, your participation and leadership are crucial. Together we will shape the vibrant future for Australia's tourism and hospitality sectors. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the summit today, and it's great to see so many smiling faces. Firstly, a couple of things, if I may. Can I take this opportunity to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and of those the land we meet today, and I pay our respects to elders past and present, and we also to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that are here today, and we thank you. Can I also take this opportunity to ask you from a couple of things for housekeeping. Please put your phones on silent, and if there's an emergency, please follow the staff here at the Parliament House for instructions, which is very important. I'm very keen for you all to enjoy today, which is fantastic, and please take plenty of notes. I'm assuming, Vanessa, that people will be able to get copies of slides and all those things later on, which is very important. Today, our expert speakers and panellists will dive into pivotal trends and policy and regulations with a keen focus on bridging the skills gap, and we aim to equip the sectors to thrive amongst evolving landscapes. Beyond their mere insights, this summit is the nexus for networking and the formation of strategic alliances, as we mentioned before. All attendees, both in person and online, are encouraged to contribute their questions and thoughts via Slido. Your queries and perspectives enrich our collective dialogue. Can I also take this opportunity to acknowledge some of our guests that are here today? Firstly, I mentioned John Hart. We all know how hard John Hart works. I've known John for many, many years. We both went to school, university together, so we've known each other since we were wee little boys, and we continued that relationship, which is very important. But I admire John's massive enthusiasm, passion, drive, commitment, and if it wasn't for Georgina, he wouldn't be here today. His better half, and I need to acknowledge Georgina because she is a mover and shaker and she's a great artist. If you're looking to buy art, John's told me that he's offering 10% discount on any of her sales. Go to www.georginahart.com.au. John will be able to deliver the painting directly to you personally, which is even better. Can I also take this opportunity to acknowledge Toshi, from who's the Director of International Education, Study and Trade. Great guy, Toshi. He and I did an event just recently highlighting the importance that international students play here in Sydney. Not only are they here studying, but they're here for 2-3 years and they contribute in a variety of ways by buying goods and services, but also, more importantly, they are here to work and they are here to play a pivotal role, especially in the hospitality and tourism sector. And early this year, Toshi organised a fantastic summit down at ICC where over 2,000 people attended, and I encourage you to speak to Toshi later and encourage you to go to the summit this year because you'll be able to see what it's like at the next year's summit, which is fantastic, and it's a great credit to him, Toshi and his team, so well done. We also have Dr. Stuart Wiggins, who's from the College of Management Sydney, Gary Stokes, TAA, Dave Collins, the Executive Director of Training Services New South Wales, Rocco Guinaachi, have I said that right? Rocco, who is in the room? Yes. Did I say that correctly? Close enough, and I do apologise. Thank you very much. Vetas, we have Stuart Page from Evolution Hospitality, Rowena Carter from Four Seasons Hotel Sydney. We love Four Seasons. I mean, we love all the hotels, of course, but Four Seasons is one of those beautiful hotels down at the end of George Street, and they do a great job. And I think they've got a heritage ballroom, and they've got all sorts of things, which is really good. And we're very proud of them being here today. Long-time supporter of TAA, Nicholas Robert, the founder of Learning Vault, Felix Perrier from ITEC. ITECA, Jessica Keane from ATEC, Marion Fitzpatrick, I think it is, and Ralph Marcelino from TAFE New South Wales, and we love TAFE New South Wales, and Stephen Brady, who's the Managing Director of TAFE, is doing a great job, so we congratulate TAFE for all the ongoing commitment to tourism and hospitality. Carla Guchka? Juka? Okay, Juka, I apologise. See, no one can pronounce my name, and I have struggles anyway. From Austrade Investment Commission, and Anne Jin from Global Hospitality. So welcome to all. Friends, without further ado, now it gives me great pleasure to call on John Hart to welcome us here and to start the summit. So please welcome John Hart, OAM.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone for being here. Welcome. Can I recognise the acknowledgement Paul gave to country earlier on and get us underway today with a few sort of comments about what we're here to do. At the end of today, my objective is to have our workforce development strategy updated and revised to reflect what you see as the priorities for tourism and hospitality training across our country. We have today, obviously, a range of you here in person, and thank you so much for being here in person. We tried to make this an in-person event off the back of last year, where we had a good number of people here in person, but we were just absolutely inundated with people wanting to join online. So to those online, I think we had 206 registrations online. So for those online, welcome. Thanks for being here. To those of you that have been able to make it in person, welcome as well. If at the end of today we can come up with that revised strategy that we all have input into, we'll be in a really great place to be able to take forward a couple of real priorities that we have for our industries. We know that we've had a pretty rough time coming out of those COVID restrictions. In every state of our nation, the situation is slightly different, but we've got a long way to go to rebuild our business. And I'll do a presentation a bit later on about where we're up to in terms of that recovery process. So can I make sure that as we go through today, you put up your view, you shout out what you want to have included in our strategy, you participate in our sessions so that we can come up with a really constructive position at the end of the day. This is all about your input. It's all about your engagement. We're going to be guided by some absolutely sensational speakers today who have got some great things to say, and I'll hope you participate in that debate as we move through our agenda. Vanessa's going to monitor what's going on online and is going to take the questions that we get online through the chat and be able to forward them on to us, so our speakers will get a chance to interact with those online as well. Part of where we need to go from here is to make sure that we can take that input that we come up with in our workforce development strategy and use that to forge a meaningful relationship with the newly formed Jobs and Skills Council. We have set up a process where we will be engaging with them to work on the tourism and hospitality priorities and be able to work with them through the development of training products and a range of other roles that Jobs and Skills Council will have. So today is about forming the basis for that engagement. It's about making sure that we can establish priorities that can feed into their first workforce development plan that they're doing across all of the sectors, as we will put one forward for the tourism and hospitality sector alone. So with that call for your cooperation and input, can we open the summit and get on with the business of the day? Again, thank you for being here, and I look forward to a really fruitful discussion as we progress throughout the next few hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Don't we love his passion? And that's what we love about John. He is a very passionate and hardworking, dedicated soul. So thank you, John, for opening it. Friends, on your table, I should have mentioned there is a pen from Parliament House. Now, keep that. We're not going to refer it to ICAC because it's a free gift, okay? But it is fantastic. It's a great pen. The great thing about this pen is also it's got a bit of a cushion that you can use on your mobile phone, so utilise that. And we've also got from from Austrade, a badge to wear. You can wear in Parliament, and people won't question what you're doing and wear it because it's a secret badge that will get you around the place. And there's also another gift from Parliament House, which is strange. We're getting all these gifts from Parliament. I mean, I'm not sure whether ICAC's been checked on this, but either way, free gifts are always something worthwhile. You never trust bearing a gift from someone, but anyway, use them anyway, which is fantastic. John, thank you. It now gives me great pleasure to call on Toshi, who I mentioned to you before. And Toshi is going to speak on global synergies, understanding the interplay of international education and tourism. Toshi, the floor is yours. The other day he was wearing an orange tie and I was wearing my blue tie. So he's got a red tie today, so we're competing. He loves his ties as I do. So if you've got any comments about his tie, then speak to him later. Toshi, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Paul. I love your energy. but I hate following you. It's just so hard to be the speaker after you, but I will do my level best. And for me, it's really nice actually to see you wearing a tie again. I feel that event we hosted last week together, you were wearing the scarf and you were wearing, we were cheering on the Matildas as well, and that brought us luck on Saturday, so I'm certainly hoping doing the same again today will bring us that luck tomorrow night as we face the Lionesses. But look, thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. And look, can I join as well before I go any further, Paul and John, in acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered here today, which are, of course, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I do extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today or online. Now, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the significant challenges that this sector has faced in recent times. And certainly it's something that my colleagues and I across the New South Wales government are very much seized of. In fact, at Study New South Wales, it's been a real driving force behind a lot of the work that we have been doing to support recovery of international education in this state. And I have to say that none of this work, though, is possible without great collaboration across the sector. And for that, I just want to take a moment as well to thank John Hart and his team at TTA for the work that they've been doing to bring us together in this way, to foster collaboration, and for their sustained advocacy in this space, because we know, in particular, international education is so critical to our visitor economy here in Sydney, New South Wales, and Australia more broadly. So what I wanted to do today was really four things. The first of which is to talk you through the importance of international education and the work that we do at Study New South Wales. Before, as my talk suggests, looking into some of the connections and interdependencies that exist between the international education and tourism sectors. I'd also like to take a moment to walk you through what we're seeing in terms of recovery of international education before closing on some of the key initiatives that we are running within Study New South Wales and the New South Wales government to support this sector and the opportunities that we have for collaboration with industry. So let's get cracking, shall we? Now, if you are an optimist like me, you're always looking for the positives in everything. And for me, if there was a silver lining at all for the international education sector during the pandemic, it was this collective awakening that we had about the value of international education, about the value of international students to our communities. When our borders closed, we missed our international students, and we did everything within our power to get them back. And looking at some of the data around this sector helps to tease out that story and why we missed our international students so much. Now, the obvious lens to look at this sector in is through that of the economy. And in Australia, we are in a very enviable position of being the third most popular study destination around the world. So according to UNESCO data on tertiary student flows around the world, we know that the US is number one, UK number two, and we are right behind the UK in Australia, and well ahead of other study destinations around the world, including Canada, France, Germany, and many other players in our region. And here in New South Wales, we're very proud of the fact that we are actually the number one destination for international students in Australia. So 4 out of every 10 international students in Australia actually studies in New South Wales. And together, these international students contribute significantly to our economy. In fact, at last count, here in this state, according to the ABS in 2022, they contributed $9.7 billion to the economy in this state. And across the country, of course, that number is much greater. It's 26.6 billion right across Australia in 2022. So this makes international education our largest services export. And in fact, in New South Wales, it's our second largest export overall. So to put it in other terms, it's the biggest export that we have that we don't dig up out of the ground. And for that reason, it's absolutely critical. Now, as Paul mentioned, The international students spend a lot on their tuition fees. In fact, that represents about 35–40% of what they spend in the economy each year. But importantly, about 60% of what they spend, so the majority of what they spend in our country while they're here, is actually on goods and services right across the country. And this has significant downstream effects in terms of creating jobs in our country. In fact, in New South Wales, the last time that the Department of Education looked at this and modelled the data, we found that we had over 95,000 full-time equivalent jobs supported by international education in this state alone. Now, in Australia-wide, the number is much greater, of course. It's closer to 250,000 jobs that are supported directly by this sector. So, in numerical terms, you see very clearly just how critical international education is to our economy. But what I'm really interested in, and I think particularly in the current climate of skill shortages, and John has touched on this in his opening, it is just how invaluable these international students are when it comes to not only supporting jobs and filling jobs in this sector, but also connecting us to the rest of the world. Now, let's put that again in numbers. At last count, according to the Department of Education, as at May this year, we had 238,000 international students in New South Wales alone. Across the country, that figure was much closer to 609,000 international students in Australia. So, not insignificant numbers. When you throw in the fact that Home Affairs in the last financial year as well has granted about 180,000 postgraduate study working visas. These are 485 visas that allow international students who have graduated from our higher education sector to work for between 2 to 5 to 6 years, depending on where and what you studied, without any strings attached or requirement for employers to play any role in their visa. So these are really, really big numbers who can contribute to filling the jobs that we're so desperate to fill in many of our industries. These numbers add up very quickly over time. In fact, over the last 20 years, since 2002, in New South Wales alone, we've recorded about 4.75 million international student enrolments. And what the data that Treasury and Home Affairs has on this tells us that roughly 84% of those students who come to study here actually go on to study to return overseas. Now, these are students who who refer friends and family to come here, who refer their peers to come study here, who do business with New South Wales, who invest in New South Wales and Australia, and who partner with their research colleagues at universities to foster those international collaborations. These are, in effect, our best ambassadors, and with a predisposition to working with Australia and connecting us to the rest of the world. And if 84% of them are going on to return overseas, 16% of them are staying back here and become permanent residents, right? So these are a key source of talent of students who, during their studies, can work now up to 48 hours a fortnight, and during their semester breaks, work unlimited hours. And after their studies, as I say, can work for between 2 to 5 or 6 years under this 485 visa. So this is a critical way in which our international students are able to help lift productivity and address some of those skill shortages that we're seeing right across the country. In fact, Paul's team at Business Sydney did some really interesting research last year, and they found that 93% of businesses across the state here in New South Wales were struggling to meet their skills gaps. And here we have on our doorstep people who are incredibly talented, who have given up everything and demonstrated considerable resilience to come to a new country to learn. They graduate from the same institutions that all of our other local students are graduating from. They have linguistic skills, multicultural skills, and they understand how foreign markets work. For a New South Wales or Australian exporter, what better intelligence to have than someone in your office who understands the fundamentals of an overseas market? So, it's obvious that we should be turning to this group to support us address those skill shortages. Now, with this in mind, it's no surprise that governments around the country are investing in units to help support and nurture this sector. And it's no different here in New South Wales, where we've established Study New South Wales to foster and nurture the sustainability of this all-important sector. And we do so by looking to bring together everyone for collective action. As you can imagine, this is quite a competitive sector where our universities and private education providers are competing, of course, in the marketplace. And we also try to position our state as strongly as possible and to leverage the great expertise and wealth of experience that we have, as well as the resources across New South Wales for that greater impact, for greater returns. We know that when we work together, as I say, we achieve far more. And so with that, Study New South Wales was established just under a decade ago. We're part of what's called the Department of Enterprise, Investment and Trade. And while we are a little team onshore, I like to refer to us as a mighty team that does a lot and is very passionate about what we do. And we work hand in glove with industry. So, and a lot of that is through, under the guidance of an International Education Advisory Board that represents the interests of not only our higher education sector, but our VET, our private providers, our English language providers, schools, right across the gamut, because it is an incredibly eclectic and diverse sector, as you can imagine. Now, our cabinet-endorsed functions revolve around 4 central functions, and these are first and foremost to improve the student experience. Our job is to make sure that the postcard that attracted our international students to come study here is matched by their experience. We also want to position the state and showcase all our strengths when it comes to research and education and grow the top of the funnel, so that when we go toe-to-toe with the Brits and the Americans overseas, that we really do put our best foot forward. Obviously, we remain a front door for policy and advocacy when it comes to international education for the New South Wales government, and we have also a role in terms of fostering market development opportunities for our education sector, nurturing that tech and other delivery models to make sure that that quality New South Wales education is also able to extend beyond our shores. Now, when it comes to international ed and tourism, for me what's really interesting is to see how media reports tend to treat these as independent sectors. But what I know in this room and online we are very acutely sensitive to is just how connected and interdependent these 2 sectors really are. And what I'd like to do in this next portion of my presentation is touch on some of the data that we see that does really connect these 2 sectors, and if I can very selfishly make advocates out of each and every one of you to help us advocate, as I say, for international education in New South Wales and Australia more broadly. Now, one of the key stats I like to draw attention to here is just how critical education exports are relative to other tourism exports in the economy. And this can be quite controversial when I present this, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of the fact of how much education exports represent when it comes to the total of our visitor economy. So what you have before you is a story in black and white about the importance of the sector, or more accurately, pink, green and blue, around just how valuable education exports are. So this is data for New South Wales. It's taken from the ABS, and it looks at the 3 key travel-related exports in New South Wales. So education, other personal travel, which is your general tourism, and business. And what this slide shows us is very clearly, from the mid-2000s onwards, education in pink has very much overtaken general tourism as the most important contributor when it comes to travel-related exports. And if you look at the latest data, as I touched on, $9.7 billion in 2022 for education-related exports. That's nearly 4 times more than general personal travel in the economy, and significantly more than business-related travel. And even at its peak, pre-pandemic, education was worth twice as much as tourism when it comes to travel-related service exports. So this is just something to keep in mind when we talk about the sector and talk about the importance of the visitor economy and the contributors that play in this space. Now, the other really interesting data set to look at when it comes to international ed and tourism is the data that TRA provides us, Tourism Research Australia, and they do some really great work. And they survey our visitors and ask them about their primary reasons for visiting, and what they've done while they're here. And what we have is some really interesting data around what our education visitors, those who put down on the survey, I'm here mainly for education, tell us about what they do and what they spend in the economy. And you'll have to forgive me because the data is a little bit dated now. It goes back to 2019. But it does really showcase, particularly with where we're going with the recovery, what the various proportions are in terms of contributions to the visitor economy. The stat I love here at a national level is that 39%, right, of everything that our visitors spend here in Australia comes from education visitors. And that's notwithstanding the fact that our education visitors represent only 7% of the total number of visitors, right, to Australia. What that's telling us is that people who come here for education spend that much more than everyone else in our economy. And that's because they stay here longer. That is because they pay for courses while they're here. And so are absolutely vital to that visitor economy. As we've touched on as well, it's a critical labour force. We know, according to the data, there are over 11,000 of these back in 2019, worked in the tourism and the hospitality sectors. More than 12,000 of them also worked in other areas such as retail, construction, childcare, and other areas which we know are also suffering from a dearth of labour. What I really love as well is that these education visitors and our international students are attracting loads of other visitors to come here. In fact, according to the data, 300,000 people in 2019 who contributed $1 billion to the economy in Australia. And that's not to mention the fact that others on different visas, such as working holiday makers and tourists, do courses while they're here as well and contribute a further $800 million to the economy each year. So really, really big numbers that really stack up over time. And when you pop the hood on what's happening here in New South Wales, the stat I love the most is that the average education visitor will spend 12 times more than the average tourist. So put that in dollar terms, $19,000 spent per visit for our education visitors compared to $1,600 for your average tourist. That's a stark difference. And in New South Wales, in fact, the proportion of what our education visitors contribute to our economy is even greater than it is at the national level. So 41% of total visitor spend here is made by education visitors. And that's despite the fact that they represent an even smaller proportion of total visitors, less than 6%. So our education visitors here in Sydney and New South Wales spend on average that much more than they do than in other places around Australia. So just a few stats there to, as I say, tease out some of those interdependencies and linkages that exist between those two sectors. Now, the good news for us is that we are seeing very, very strong recovery in the international education sector. And I'd like to tease that out again with a few key stats. So if you look at international student enrollments, and this is the latest data that we have from the Department of Education, we can see very clearly that international ed and international student enrollments are picking up very strongly compared to the same time last year. And New South Wales is very much leading that charge. So we've seen, since the same time last year, a lift of 29% in New South Wales international student enrolments. That's ahead of our neighbours south of the border in Victoria, who've seen a lift of about 25-26%. But really great to see that right around Australia, we are seeing that lift in international student numbers. When you look at where those international student numbers are recovering, and I have before you some of the data here in New South Wales. The really good news story for us is we're also seeing that recovery right across the different sectors that make up our international ed sector. So in our tertiary education sector, particularly higher education, which is the most valuable sector for export revenue, we are seeing lifts of between 15 to 20%, representing an additional 16,000 international student enrolments in New South Wales compared to where we were at the same time last year. So really, really great to see that recovery. But what I also love seeing is that our pathway sectors, so our schools, and even though it doesn't look like it on that graph, they are seeing an uplift in numbers, as is the English language intensive courses for overseas student market, or the ELICOS market, which is so critical for us because these are sectors where students study and then go on to further study here in this country. So it's really, really important that we be replenishing that pipeline after the border closures with these pathway sectors. And ELICOS, in fact, has seen a whopping 230% lift in enrolments in New South Wales compared to the same time last year. That's 24,000 additional enrolments for people studying English courses in New South Wales under an ELICOS study visa. So that's, as I say, really, really exciting to see that pick up. And these numbers are being reflected right across the country, as you can imagine. The other lens through which to look at this recovery is through the lens of where the students coming from. And really fantastic to see again that all of our key markets, and here you have data for New South Wales, are recovering very, very strongly. So China, Nepal, India continue to lead the way and have been lifting since 2022 in terms of overall enrolments. But as well, we see the other key source regions for us. So Latin America, Southeast Asia, all seeing big uplifts in student numbers compared to May last year. And that diversity of student body makeup is absolutely critical when it comes to fostering a positive student experience and having that diversity in our classrooms. So really great, as I say, to see numbers lifting across all our key source markets. You ask me to look into the future and do a bit of crystal ball gazing. I'll say no way. But what I'm happy to do is point you towards some data that our friends at Navitas have shared with us. And they've done some really interesting work in trying to model future student flows. And they've taken that UNESCO data that I've touched on earlier. They've taken GDP and demographic data that we have. And based on the modeling, suggests that really a lot of our key sending markets between now and the end of the decade will continue to grow. And so China, India, are expected to continue to be the leading outbound source markets for international students. But again, across Southeast Asia and across LATAM, some really strong growth being expected as well. And our job here in Australia is to position ourselves competitively to make sure that we do attract this immense talent to our shores for all the reasons I outlined in the first part of my presentation. Now, certainly for us studying New South Wales, we're trying to do our part to support the recovery of this sector and have been working very hard to bring our international students back. And in this last section of my talk today, just wanted to touch on some of the key initiatives that we are running and the opportunities that we have for collaboration between industry and government. Now, the way we're set up is across 3 streams, and one of the more exciting streams of work that we do at Study New South Wales is around offshore engagement. Now, some of you may be aware that in the last 2 to 3 years, we've effectively at a state level doubled the size of our offshore network in New South Wales. And the bit I'm most excited about is the fact that we've actually appointed 4 education-focused roles. So these are directors of international education whose sole purpose is to operate in overseas markets to help our education sector better export, to connect with commercial opportunities in market, and to attract investment into the education sector. So this is by far and large the most exciting development for us in the last couple of years in being able to help our sector overseas connect with these opportunities. So we've placed directors of international education in 2 of our core markets, India and China, but we've also placed them in Jakarta in Indonesia with a focus on ASEAN, and someone in Santiago in Chile who's there to look after the LATAM market. And as I've touched on, these are absolutely critical and growing diversification markets for us. So we're focused on, as I say, that sustainability of this sector. We don't want to have all our eggs in one basket. And what I've tried to pick up here on this slide is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a smattering of initiatives that we've been involved in over the last few months, and where we're hoping to go in the next couple of months as well, to showcase some of the work that we are doing in partnership with the sector to support that recovery. And really, it all starts with the borders opening back in late 2021 and us racing to the World Expo to host a really big event at the Australian Pavilion to showcase that we were once again open in Sydney and New South Wales, that we welcomed our international students, and that we stand for quality when it comes for education here, right across our sectors and our public and private providers. And that's really kickstarted a very, very strong recovery that we've seen here in our state and across Australia. And it's been non-stop since then. We've been active in various continents, working with our overseas staff. We've been partnering with Austrade. I very much see this as a Team Australia approach. The competition is not here amongst ourselves. It is we need to go toe-to-toe with the US and the UK to really position ourselves and attract those international students. So the partnerships that we have with Austrade in places like India and North Asia have been critical for us in helping to showcase the quality that we have on offer here. We've been bringing delegations out as well to our state. We've taken the New South Wales Governor and a record number of providers overseas in ASEAN recently to do a big expo. And the next cab off the rank for us is to head out to Latin America, where we'll be doing a road show in Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, which are our largest Spanish-speaking markets in LATAM. And we're hoping as well to work with Austrade next year and run a mission to Africa, which is also a really exciting emerging market for us. So as you can tell, a lot of activity for us overseas, and it's a new and emerging part of the work that we do at Study New South Wales. Our key target market, our prospective students, are all, as you can imagine, active online. We need to be too. So the campaigns that we've run are all about reaching and growing the funnel and exposing our students to the quality and opportunities that exist in our state and in our country. The campaigns that we ran last year reached over 110 million prospective students. The stats speak for themselves. We've been active on Meta platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, and the numbers continue to grow over time. So great to help us get the word out there about what it is that you in this room help to offer prospective international students. The last point and the last area we work on is, of course, supporting international students. As I say, we're in the business of creating ambassadors for New South Wales. And the way we do that is by looking after our students, making sure that they have the best possible experience during their stay. And that means supporting them throughout their study journey, from the time that they get here, and we know that a strong welcome experience colours the rest of your experience. The first 24 hours is absolutely critical in shaping the rest of your stay here. So we have a welcome desk out at Sydney Airport and newly opened at Newcastle Airport as well, where we help to greet and support international students on arrival. This is a service that's run by other students. It's a peer-to-peer support that is offered here, and really goes to putting a smile on people's faces as they get off that plane. We partner with our local councils, including the City of Sydney, to run welcome events and connect them up to services. We want to make sure that they're connected to peers and shown a very warm welcome to our communities. Throughout their studies, we're here to help them thrive, and that means running a free legal advice service so that no student falls between the cracks. It is about working with bodies like New South Wales Health to connect them up and to make sure that they know how to navigate our health system. It is about running awards that we do every year to offer a platform to really showcase, right, the great contribution that our international students make to this state and to our communities. And of course, as they graduate, as they look for work, we're here to help them succeed. And this is really about helping connect them to job opportunities and helping them build up their employability skills to get that work experience that matches their study fields. And I've highlighted there a particular initiative, New South Wales Jobs Connect, because I see that as a true area ripe for collaboration, particularly with people in this room. And this is, a real point of pride for us at Study New South Wales. We've had a bit of a coup. It's a world first. We've partnered with the largest job marketplace in our region in SEEK, with industry, with businesses, and with education providers to deliver this new initiative, which we call New South Wales Jobs Connect. What we're trying to do here is tackle the problem where we have, on the one hand, employers who tell us, I can't get talent. All right, I can't find people to fill the jobs that I have. And on the other hand, students who tell us, I can't get a job. I fill out an application, halfway through only to find out the job's open only to permanent residents. Or I get to the end of the application, I submit it, I never hear back. So what we're doing here is we've established what's called an International Student Business Charter. We're educating employers right across New South Wales about the skills that international students bring, about the fact that students have certain work rights, about the fact that students can help them, but that they are primarily here to study. Right? And so we get these businesses and these employers to sign up to the Student Business Charter to showcase A, that they recognize that students are here first and foremost for their studies, but B, that they are willing to treat and offer international students the same opportunities as they are to any other permanent resident or local constituent. And by doing that, as soon as they adopt the business charter, they can use this hashtag New South Wales Jobs Connect when they advertise their jobs on Seek. And what we're finding is that the jobs that use the hashtag and use this filter are actually performing on average better than the average job that's posted on Seek. We are doing what we can to get international student eyeballs on those jobs, right? And students are identifying and seeing for themselves those employers that stand for best practice when it comes to international student employment, that are really keen and hungry to employ international students, and putting them on a platform and getting them to apply for jobs. So we're seeing this as wins for our employers, as wins for our education sector, and of course, as wins for our businesses. And for us, the story and the success that we're having is being told by the fact that jurisdictions right around Australia are now picking up this model and doing the same thing. We've seen this now picked up, I think, in WA and Queensland, and it's great to see other jurisdictions picking this up. We hope it also gets done at the Australia and national level. We've had over 200 businesses signed up in the last few months. We've posted over 2,000 jobs. And importantly, these are jobs that are posted right across different industries, right? This is not just about tourism and hospitality. We know that 55% of our graduates in IT, in engineering, are international graduates, right? We want to help them secure jobs with those IT employers, with those health employers, with those engineering job providers. And so we're really proud of the fact that those jobs are, spread across different industries. And as I say, we're getting significant digital reach with these campaigns and getting lots of eyeballs on those employers. Paul mentioned, the Careers Expo that we hosted this year. We very much hope to do so again and to grow it and to increase its scale, to help continue to connect our international students with those providers and employers of choice. So let me leave you in no doubt about my call to action for today. I want more providers to sign up to the Jobs Connect initiative. You have the details, you have the URL, hop on our website. It's as simple as signing up to the charter, filling out a form, ticking a box, and then using the hashtag. The more we use this, the more our employers will be able to secure international talent to help them grow, the more students we'll be able to attract. And that's going to nurture, as I say, this virtuous cycle. Now, I'm conscious I've probably gone over time. You'll have to forgive me. Like John, I'm very passionate about this sector. But if you have any questions, if you want to get involved, connect with us. You have the website on there. You have we're active on social media. Sign up to our news channels. You'll be the first to find out about initiatives that we're running in this space and how we can work together. So from me, a very big thank you to everyone for your attention, and I will let the forum continue. So thank you very much.
Right, thanks. Vanessa, got questions on Slido. So how do you want to proceed with that?
I'll just ask the questions on behalf of the people that I've put the questions up. Is that okay? We've got a heap of questions in here, but I think as you've gone through your presentation, Toshi, you've actually answered quite a lot of them. But one of them that I wanted to draw out was, is there a regional strategy to encourage students to do regional during study breaks?
Well, absolutely. And what I'd say is that certainly for us at Study New South Wales, this is an absolute priority. We know that the vast majority of our students do study in Sydney, but I think it's, close to 95% of them study in the Greater Sydney area. And what we want to do is make sure that more of our students get out into the regions to experience that authentic experience of Australia. So certainly in the way that we position regional, or what we call alternative study destinations, because I think regional sometimes brings with it a slightly different connotation for our international students. And we know that our regional destinations or alternative study destinations offer significant quality. So we want to position that for our international students to get out to the regions, to get out to work with people outside of Sydney. And in fact, on our board, we've got some really, really strong advocates for this. Alex Zielinski, the Vice Chancellor for Newcastle University, as well as the CEO CEO of the local government council for the Port Macquarie area, are both represented on our boards, and make sure that everything that we do at Study New South Wales also applies that regional lens and is about getting international students out and outside of Sydney.
Thank you. And one of the other questions was, do the students receive a welcome pack when they arrive in the country? And you mentioned that it's peer-to-peer, which is great. Is there anything that we can add as an industry to make the welcome warmer?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's in this social license piece, right? What I would say is that if each and every one of us is an advocate for international students, is there to educate the rest of the population about the value of these students and just how important they are to our communities, we will really ensure that those students have the best possible experience, right? Media headlines that say international students are to blame for the accommodation crisis are not helping in this regard. And it is our job, right, each and every one of us as industry players, to be on the front foot, to be using every opportunity that we have to talk about how important these international students are. It's not just about the dollars. As I say, this is about talent. This is about human beings who give up everything and show so much resilience to come and join us and to give back to our communities. And I think the very least that we can do as an industry and as providers is to help tell their story and to draw attention to this, so that we are building up that social license and really offering the warmest welcome we can to those international students every day and in every interaction that we have with them.
And the last question that I'll ask, and as I said, we have actually got quite a few here, so I might let you answer some of them during the break. Otherwise, we'll be here forever and ever. But one last one, it's probably a big one as well, is how can we stop losing 84% of the skills we train going back overseas or moving to other countries?
Look, it boils down, as I say, to some of the welcome, and how students feel about studying here and the experience that they have. Clearly, the migration review that's underway at a Commonwealth level is also looking at pathways for our most talented international students, and where we're really looking forward and we've contributed to that review. It's a sort of once in a generation review of the migration system that's really looking to unkink some of those issues that we have seen develop in recent times, and we look forward to the final implementation of that. So I think that's really exciting way of making sure that we do help to retain that great talent that we have here. But the fact is, and look, I have to call this out, is that a lot of students will, no matter what we do, return overseas, right? You miss your family, you miss your people, and so it's only natural that I believe the vast majority of people who come to study here will continue to return back to their home countries. And as I say, that is a really good thing for us. They connect us to the world, right? They continue to partner, invest, travel, come back here, and support our economy, support our communities through what they do. So I'd actually say, yes, let's try and hang on to as many of the, particularly those super talented folk that are coming out here. Let's make it easier for them to stay. But let's also celebrate the fact that they are our ambassadors and do go back overseas and do so much for us back in their home countries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Toshi. And you can see how passionate Toshi is, and feel free to reach out to Toshi. I think you're here all day, isn't that right? Yeah, staying overnight to Parliament House as well. Well, if you want to join Toshi, by all means. But it is important, and you can clearly see from those stats and clearly from what Toshi has said how important it is. And I think it's important for us all to get behind the summit and the event that Toshi puts on down at the ICC next year. So if you are keen to be involved, then feel free. There were a lot of hotel representatives down there. The taxi industry was there. The retail industry was there. So everyone sees the value, and I think it's important we utilise that as much as possible. Just for the next round of speakers, just be conscious that we do have the people online. I think there's over 200 people online. And hello to all those people online. We haven't forgotten you. We are here, and we love you as well, even though you're not here. So, but you're there, out there in the ether, which is really important. Friends, our next speaker is Carla, and she's the head of the Visitor Economy Capability Workforce and the EMDG Policy, Visitor Economy and Client Program Programs Division. For the past year, Carla has headed up Austrade's visitor economy capability, workforce and EMDG policy branch. In this role, she is responsible for the National Visitor Economy Strategy, Thrive 2030. So please, while we should all wear the badge while she's speaking. Is there special, if we wear the badge, we're going to get a special something? Yep, okay. So please put the badge on. I think it's important we show our support for Carla. Where are we? In this engagement with the states and territories building a visitor economy and business and workforce capability, as well as the Export Market Development Grants Policy Program. Carla was previously the head of the Secretariat in the independent report Reimagining the Visitor Economy, led by the former Tourism Minister, the Honourable Martin Ferguson AM, and prior to joining Austrade, she worked in senior roles at the Department of Home Affairs, Australian Border Force, the Department of Infrastructure and Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Please welcome Carla.
That's a mouthful. Okay. Look, thanks so much for you joining me here today. I'm here to talk about Thrive 2030, which is our national visitor economy strategy, and in particular some of the workforce initiatives that are underway as part of it. So let me see if this drives. So before I get started, this is an extract of our acknowledgement to country in our visitor economy strategy. It was written specifically for us by Professor Dean Saunders, who was the former chair of the National Indigenous Tourism Advisory Group. And we're really touched.
Ignore that. Sorry, we're not members of Parliament, so we don't need to run out anywhere. That's not an emergency bill or anything like that. Sorry.
That's all good. No worries. So just a quick outline of my presentation today. I'll just talk a bit about some of the data, building on some of Toshi's presentation, and then just outline for you a bit about Thrive 2030. Then we've got a short-term action plan that sits under it, and I'll discuss some of the initiatives there, as well as some of the work that's coming down the pipeline. So first on the data front, I thought before I get into the workforce data, I'd talk a bit about visitor numbers. And here's some data that really shows that the domestic visitor economy has largely recovered post-COVID. The first bar shows total trip spend, which is up on 2019 levels. The second one is visitor nights. And then the third one is trip spend, which is on a par with, trip spend, number of trips, I'm very sorry. Then the second graph is on international visitor numbers. And as of May 2023, they were 77% of pre-COVID levels. So international visitors are returning. The first cohort back were people who were visiting family and friends, but holiday makers are now returning and are on a par with the cohort that are visiting family and friends. International visitors, our top 5 markets at the moment is New Zealand, followed by the United States and India, and then Singapore and then China. They're our top 5 international visitor markets. So I'm just checking. Yeah, so moving on to what our tourism workforce looks like. This is a pretty grim chart, which shows what happened during COVID to the tourism workforce and the drop that occurred. And then following COVID, the increase, and we've had 6 consecutive quarterly increases in the tourism workforce. So our workforce numbers are at 347,000 people in our tourism workforce, which is, 347,000 jobs have been added to our tourism workforce. That's a big difference. So we're now at, I'm looking for the number here in my presentation, just over 700,000 people working in tourism across Australia. So this chart shows internet vacancy rates for tourism roles and what happened during the COVID period. And you can see the peak when everyone was desperate for staff. in 2022 in particular, and then we saw a dip in around Christmas or so at the beginning of 2023, and it's increasing again. And the key roles that are being advertised in terms of numbers of roles being advertised, it's cooks and chefs, it's hotel staff, hotel managers, housekeeping staff, bar attendants, baristas. They're the key roles that are being advertised. So Thrive is our national visitor economy strategy, and the Albanese government and Minister Farrell re-released it earlier this year. It has the aim of Australia's visitor economy providing world-leading services and visitor experiences to consumers, while also delivering significant and sustainable benefits to the Australian community. There's 7 pillars that sit under Thrive, and workforce and skills is one of those pillars. And it has the aim to grow a secure and resilient workforce that works in Australia's visitor economy. We need a workforce that have the right skills to address visitor needs and to help grow the sector's competitiveness. So in the workforce and skills pillar in Thrive, there's 12 actions, 11 are currently underway, and it includes actions not just for the Australian government and for agencies across the Australian government, but also for state and territory governments, as well as industry. So I'll just now talk about some of the initiatives that are underway under the auspices of Thrive, and starting with the Tourism Job Summit, which the Minister for Trade and Tourism hosted last August in Canberra. And he gathered participants from across the industry, including industry associations, unions, academics, the Australian government representatives, state government representatives came together to discuss some of the challenges facing the tourism workshop and to workshop ideas. And the ideas were workshopped under 5 themes that are listed here. So structural challenges, the domestic workforce, the international workforce, how we can improve workforce capability, as well as promoting the visitor economy as a career of choice. So it wasn't just a talk fest. Some key ideas and initiatives have come out of the Tourism Job Summit. So Minister Farrell conveyed those ideas to the Treasurer, and they fed into the Jobs and Skills Summit that the Treasurer hosted at Parliament House a few days later. And coming out of the Jobs and Skills Summit, there was announcements around, for example, an increase in work rights for pension holders, and the work bonus for pension holders was one of the announcements that came out of the Jobs and Skills Summit. There was an announcement to run a disability employment pilot that targeted small businesses, and in particular small tourism businesses, to support them to hire people with a disability, to launch some marketing strategies to attract people back to work in tourism. And the ideas that were generated at the Tourism Job Summit have gone into the Austrade submission for both the employment white paper process as well as the migration review. We've also taken those ideas and captured them in what we're calling the Visitor Economy Workforce and Skills Interim Action Plan. And that is a catalogue of all the activities that are underway across the Australian government, state and territory governments and industry associations to build workforce capability in the tourism sector. And just some examples, for example, a number of states are running programs to attract young people to come and work in tourism, and they're listed up here today. There is a First Nations tourism mentoring program that's just been launched by the National Indigenous Australians Agency, and we worked closely with John and his team. ACCI has an initiative whereby participating businesses can rebate working holiday maker visa fees, and we've worked with Home Affairs and Tourism Australia to do a mail out to working holiday makers to attract them back to Australia. So I'll just run you through some of the other initiatives that are underway to attract people back to work in tourism and build tourism capability. The Albanese government announced a $48 million tourism and travel package, and as part of that, they're funding enhancements to the Quality Tourism Framework, which is run by the Australian Tourism Industry Council. We're running a Choose Tourism campaign, which will amplify state and territory campaigns to attract people to come and work in tourism. And we're developing the Accommodation Associations Hub, which will become an employment and training portal. So a bit of information just on the Choose Tourism campaign. The government's partnered with each state and territory to amplify their existing campaigns. So each state and territory will run different initiatives, whether it's some are expos, some are social media campaigns. In New South Wales, there'll be a social media campaign to attract people to come and work in tourism. Austrade's also running a social media campaign building on the increased work rights for pension holders to come and encourage mature Australians to come and take up part-time, short-term seasonal roles in tourism. And what we found is that's actually garnered a lot of interest and a lot of interest from people that have, and a lot of traffic's been directed to the Austrade website. We've also put out a toolkit and done our campaigns towards employers to also encourage them to consider employing mature Australians in some of their roles. Austrade has partnered with the Department of Social Security on this one-year pilot, which is called the Tourism Local Navigators Pilot. And the aim is to build the confidence of small businesses, and in particular tourism small businesses, to employ people with a disability. We know that small businesses don't have the time to navigate, employment channels. They find it really difficult to navigate the disability employment system at the moment. So this is a pilot to look at how we can do more bespoke approach, particularly aimed at small businesses, and in particular for this pilot, it's tourism small businesses, to see if they can build the confidence to encourage them to employ people with a disability. We want to take the learnings from that pilot, it will be a one-year pilot, and feed it into the disability employment system more broadly. So that's the aim of what we want to do with those learnings. So one of the people who are delivering this pilot in the Blue Mountains area is Hotel Etico. For those of you who may not be familiar with Hotel Etico, they run a hotel training school for people with disability and are beginning to place those people with disability in hotels across the Sydney region. They're one of our partners in this pilot to work with other tourism businesses to employ people with a disability. We see, this is the right slide. We see a lot of opportunities for First Nations people in tourism, and after all, First Nations culture is the one unique offering that Australia has compared to the rest of the world. And to support increased participation of First Nations people in tourism, the National Indigenous Australians Agency has just launched a mentoring program. The first step of the mentoring program is they did an EOI to find out which Indigenous tourism businesses, experienced Indigenous tourism businesses, might be interested in being mentors. And now they've identified those mentors. The program is now open to mentor new, young First Nations tourism businesses as they start on their journey of becoming tourism businesses. So there's some of the initiatives around the domestic workforce in terms of how we're trying to build capability in the domestic workforce. Also to touch on the international workforce, which is of course important, and international students play a really important part of that. There's also working holiday makers that are very important, and there's 137,000 of them in Australia as of the 30th of June, according to Home Affairs. And we worked really closely with ACCI and with Tourism Australia and Home Affairs to do a mail out to working holiday maker visa holders who are offshore to encourage them to come to Australia and to point out employment opportunities that would be available to them in Australia. So it's not just about the numbers and the vast numbers of jobs that we need to fill through in tourism, but it's also about having a skilled tourism workforce. And I did approach the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations to partner with me on this speech today, but unfortunately the skills part of the department is caught up with the Jobs and Skills councils getting them set up today. So they've provided me with some information that they just wanted me to share with this group today. But it's worth noting that there is a lot of work underway at the Australian government level in terms of skills reform. There's the fee-free places that the Australian government is funding. It's ultimately for states and territory governments to identify where those fee-free places get allocated. But every state and territory has allocated fee-free places to tourism and hospitality TAFE places. And in New South Wales, there's about 5,000 places, tourism TAFE places that are fee-free. Then as part of the skills reform piece, there's three elements of this. There's the qualification reform, there's a reform around quality, and then there's the industry engagement reform. And John's mentioned the work around the Jobs and Skills Councils, which have been set up to engage with industry, to do workforce planning, training, product development, to do promotion and monitoring, and to support industry stewardship. As John has mentioned at the beginning of today, they are developing their strategies and their work plan at the moment, and now is a really important time to engage with them. The Tourism and Hospitality Jobs and Skills Council will be run by Skills Equip. They've asked me to put a call out for the industry to engage with them. There's their website details and email address on the screen. They're particularly keen to build the networks to hear from industry as they're doing their workforce planning. There's some other really big dollops of work underway at the Australian government level. The first one, which we heard Toshi reference, was the development of the migration strategy. So the migration review was released a few months ago. That was an independent report of government, and the government is still considering its response to the migration review. At least part of its response will be through the migration strategy, which is in the process of being finalised at the moment. There was a number of initiatives that the government has also announced in relation to the migration review. For example, increasing the threshold for the temporary skilled migration income threshold. And they're very focused on creating pathways to permanency for temporary skilled migrants. The other sort of really big dollop of work that's underway at the Australian government level is the employment white paper, and that's due out in September. And that will really set the framework for all employment and workplace relations policies at the Australian government level, and that's coming out shortly. Underneath both documents, Austrade will be working on a visitor economy specific workforce and skills strategy to look at how we can build workforce capability for the tourism sector within Australia. And because there is a lot going on and coming out, I would encourage you, if you do want to keep in touch, we have a newsletter that comes out about monthly, which lets stakeholders know about key initiatives that are underway that relate to tourism. So I would encourage you to subscribe to that newsletter. A lot of additional material is on the Austrade website, and an email address for my team is also on the website if you wanted to, on the screen, if you'd like to get in touch and ask questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, Vanessa, are there questions from Slido? while that's happening, Carla mentioned Hotel Etigo. Andrea, great guy, doing great stuff at this hotel. It's an old facility that they've just refurbished. A lot of the work that they've done on the hotel has been donated through support from many charitable and individual organisations and individuals, and they're supplying a lot of people, with disabilities into the workforce, which is fantastic. And the people involved are just so excited to have a job and being so excited to be part of it. So congratulations to you in supporting that initiative.
No, it's a really important initiative.
And I encourage you all to sort of go online and take a look at what they do at Hotel Etigo. Now I'm going to go. We're ready, Vanessa? Oh.
Yep, we're ready. So, is it possible to access the targeted marketing resources?
We have a employer kit, and there's a which is downloadable. So, and then the social media campaign is an Australian government branded campaign. So that one is not for, I guess, repurposing, but there is an employer kit that is deliberately designed to be repurposed. So I'm happy to share with you, Vanessa, to share with the participants the links to how to download that. Yes.
Thank you. I was going to also say that we will make available the all of the presentations that you're seeing today, so don't be too stressed about taking photographs and so forth. As soon as we can, we'll get them online and send you the links. But that's all we have in terms of questions, and I'm sure there'll be others during the break. I think everyone's looking forward to the scones that are sitting over here.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Carla.
Please thank Carla for that wonderful presentation. And look, more information. I think it's really important. We've got people like Carla and as we mentioned, Toshi, working with government, both at the federal and state government, is very, very important. And when you've got people like Toshi and Carla who are passionate about what they're doing, it's great that we get engaged with them, develop relationships, partnerships, and we can see that the partnerships that both Carla has done in a variety of organisations and institutions is fantastic, and as we've seen with Toshi as well. So please feel free. Carla is here. I think you're all here all day. Yeah, okay. You can't miss her. She's got a pink jacket. And as I mentioned to you before, I'm wearing my Thrive 2030 badge, so we should all wear that with pride. And if you want to, and you're going to the football tomorrow, even wear it tomorrow to show how proud you are in supporting Thrive 2030. Okay, well, now we're going to have a morning tea break. And I'd like you all to be back here at 11:20. Is that right, Vanessa? Yeah, I think it's 11:20. I could be wrong. So if you need to go to the boys' room or the girls' room, I know it's outside there to your right and left, I think it is. And please, if you are, don't wander too far. And if you have to go in the building, make sure you wear your pass, because you will be picked up by security at some stage. So we don't want to have to go out and bail you out in the locker room, somewhere wherever it is in this building, if you are grabbed by security. So please make sure you wear your pass if you have to leave the building or go anywhere in the building, and please be back here at 11:20. Those that are online, you can now go get yourself a coffee, whether it's an espresso or an instant, or feel free to walk around your backyard or on your balcony, or feed the dog or the cat. But I really want you to come back at 11:20 as well for those that are online. I think John Hart has provided us with some beautiful scones. As we all know, John is not only an advocate and a policy boffin or a CEO or a chair, but he's also a wonderful chef. And I think I can see from here the scones, he has put them together for us to try. So please don't upset John, because he's been working tirelessly from this morning to prepare those beautiful scones. Is that correct, John? That's correct, yes. They're all non-fattening scones with non-fattening cream and non-fattening marmalade. All right, please enjoy, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Thank you.